Welcome to Great British Ghosts. Today I'm in Blackpool, which has a wonderful history of seaside entertainment. Later on I'll be going to the famous Pleasure Beach to ride a ghost train, which apparently has a real ghost. But first of all, I've come to the Grand Theatre, where even past performers are said to put on a jolly good show. The Grand Theatre is a Blackpool institution, which has been home to all manner of variety shows, entertainments and plays for well over a century. I even played here in the musical Seven Brides for Seven Brothers back in the 80s. Long-time stage manager David Fletcher agreed to show me around. David.
Michaela, welcome to the Grand Theatre.
I hear you're going to tell me about some ghost stories.
I certainly am. Would you like to come through?
Yeah.
Right, through here. This is the stage, which you'll probably remember.
It brings back a few memories, actually, David.
Right. First of all, the theatre opened on the 23rd of July in 1894. The architect being a gentleman called Frank Matcham, who most people have now heard of. Besides this theatre, he built or substantially rebuilt about 150 theatres altogether, of which at the last count there were 28 left. Probably his most famous one's the London Palladium, but the Belfast Opera House, the Wolverhampton Grand, the Gaiety on the Isle of Man. In Blackpool, he built the original Opera House, the Tower Ballroom, the Tower Circus, Chinatown, the Palace complex on the front there. And, so there's still quite a lot of his stuff left in Blackpool. In fact, I think we've probably got more than anywhere else.
Well, it's a beautiful theatre and probably hasn't changed much since then.
It's been restored. When you were here first, last time, the ceiling panels, which are now blue and white, would have been yellow and green. We've got an old photograph of those still like that. But it's all been restored. They got down to the original paint, and that's the one they restored. Now then, our ghost. The most famous one is known as Charlie, and he actually inhabits the upper circle, which is the first level down from the top.
And who was Charlie?
Charlie was a young man, so the story goes, fell in love with an actress, was spurned completely, but he threw himself over the edge of the upper circle and killed himself.
So he committed suicide because his love had left him?
He did indeed.
And do you have any idea when that was?
It would have been early in the 20th century, very early. Now, the last time somebody actually told us they'd seen him up there was a few years ago when we had the Drifters here on the summer Sundays. And at the interval, the lead singer's lady friend who was watching the show down in the stalls there went to the usher who was selling ice creams underneath the roll box and said, "Excuse me, is there a ghost in this theatre?" And Samantha says, "Well, yes, there's supposed to be. Why?" She says, "Would it be up there by any chance?" and pointed straight at the upper circle bar doors. And Sam says, "Yes, it's supposed to be. Why?" She said, "Because I can see a young man up there, and he's got a young lady on each arm. So he's thrown himself over for one and ended up with two." Now then, there are several other things to see around the building, but while we're here, if you look directly up, you can see the white going across the stage there. That is the bridge.
Yeah.
And we've been told by several mediums, etc., that there is a portal to the spirit world on the bridge, which is where the ghosts come and go as they like. Would you like to see that part?
If we can, that'd be great.
Would you like to come this way, please?
The story of Charlie's interesting. It dates back to the early 1900s, and it's a typical love story. Charlie actually was a member of the audience who fell madly in love with one of the actresses. Now, if you go back in theatrical history, it was quite common for a show to perhaps play for a couple of months at a time. So Charlie is supposed to have brought a ticket to see his love many, many times, coming every single night, going to the stage door and continually being spurned by her. And so in one last desperate attempt to gain her affection, or at least her attention, threw himself dramatically off the side and down into the orchestra pit below, plunging himself to his death. A very sad end.
David, you've been here for 30 years. Have you seen the ghosts?
Not personally. I mean, I don't doubt, but I haven't seen one personally. But apparently, there is one that follows me around occasionally.
Do you know who it is?
Yes, it's the original owner of the place, a gentleman called Thomas Sargison.
Well, so he just keeps an eye on you?
Apparently he likes the way I look after the theatre.
But you've never seen him or sensed him?
No, not personally. Now, this is the level where we are now. This is where all the ghosts are.
Oh, great.
So this is where all the sceneries drop down onto the stage.
This is where all the flying's done from. You see all the bars across the top there? Yeah. We have 50 hanging bars from front to back of stage. The ladder there goes up to the grid. That's the highest point of the theatre, by the way. These boxes connect directly to the lighting box at the back of the dress circle, and these control all the lights above the stage.
Gee, there are an awful lot of bits of wire
there's
and
lots
cables
of points and corners and what have you. No, this is the bridge I was telling you about that goes across the stage, and the portal to the spirit world apparently is just about 3 or 4 feet actually on the bridge.
Actually on the bridge?
That's it.
That's apparently though, isn't it?
Well,
I'll follow you.
This is it. Now then, fair enough. But if you disappear, don't blame me. This way, please.
This is very Phantom of the Opera, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
This is where all the ghosts just drop things on people that are behaving badly.
This is where you drop
head.
rubber chickens and things like that. You okay? This is where you drop rubber chickens from. And this is where it snows from and things like that.
So has a ghost been seen on here?
Well, funny enough, we had one of the mediums here, and he actually found the ghost just this side of the portal. The original owner of the place is the ghost that follows me around occasionally.
And he actually saw him?
He not only saw him, he got the ghost to come inside him so that we could talk to the ghost.
What did he say?
Well, first of all, of course, the first question he asked him was, who was he? And, in rather a gruff voice, he said, I'll tell you later. And several times he asked him who he was, and same reply. And then, right at the end, when he finally asked him again who he was, or if somebody else asked him, it wasn't actually him obviously, because he was, the ghost was talking through him. And then they turned around to me and said, well, who was the original owner? And I said, well, Thomas Sargison. And then the ghost inside turned around and said, bloody big mouth, and left him.
So that's the ghost that's been seen on here? That's
the one that's been seen on here and apparently follows me around. I've never actually seen him, but if he's behind me all the time, of course I won't see him. Would you like to come up with it?
There are tales here in this theatre of a paranormal portal to another world actually being sighted on the bridge that crosses the stage up there. Now, of course, this isn't scientifically proven, and indeed paranormal portals, if indeed they exist at all, is a theory. Now, most places where you find a paranormal portal story, you'll find ley lines. I'm not aware of any ley lines here in this site, so that may be a little bit of a question as to whether it's actually true or not. Having said that, a lot of bizarre experiences have taken place up there, and I've been up there, and when it's dark and you're in the top of the fly tower, it's a pretty creepy place to be.
This is actually the upper circle. This is where various spooky experiences, shall we say, have occurred. Now then, just down at the front here, this would have been the place where Charlie threw himself over from. It would have been a solid floor downstairs there, so presumably it would have killed him instantly. And also, now I told you we had a pantomime producer, it was a UK Productions. He was actually sat in the seat here. And he said he was sat here watching the dress rehearsal for the pantomime. And he was minding his own business, and suddenly he felt a tap on the shoulder. And I turned round, checked out, and nobody there, so. Nah, must have imagined it, so I sat down, got back into the production. After about a minute, another tap on the shoulder. Looked up. No, nobody there. Fine. Must be all the tension from the rehearsal. So he said I sat down again, and again, after about a minute, he felt a tap on the shoulder. He thought, there's somebody messing around here. And he thought it was probably somebody from the marketing office. So he says, I got up and I checked out all the rows, and there was nobody hiding in any of them. He said, so then I went down to the dress circle to watch the rest of the rehearsal, and I've never been back to the upper circle since.
Do you know, David, I think that ghost has seen too many pantos, and he was doing that sketch. It's behind you. Oh, no, it isn't.
Oh, yes, it is. Now then, this is the main area where Charlie has been sighted. This is where the leaders, the drifters, when they were here, the young lady saw the ghost was literally standing straight in front of these bar doors. Now then, we also have one other ghost. Now, this is of one of somebody that I used to know. Somebody that actually died in 1989.
And where do you see him?
And he's seen in the studio.
If you accept the producer's story that he felt a tapping on his shoulder, and who might question him, then it throws up a lot of questions, because it's one thing having a haunted building and people seeing things, but actually physically touching you is quite different. If you look at the history of ghosts generally, there are lots and lots of reports of poltergeists where they physically interact with items and with people. The interesting thing for me, though, about this story with the producer is that it happened 3 times. It happened once, he looked around, thought maybe I'd imagined it. It happened twice, looked again. On the 3rd time, he assumed that somebody was playing a prank on him. If you look at where he was sat, it is the spot where Charlie is supposed to haunt.
This bit feels like a haunted theatre.
It doesn't. At night, I've done night watch here a few times, and the whole place creaks and squeaks as it's settling down. Because, of course, it's mostly a wooden frame. Just through this way, and there you go. Right, this is our studio theatre. This is where we put on the smaller productions, probably an audience of, say, between 80 and 90.
Well, this looks a lot more modern than the theatre, is it?
Well, the fittings are, but the actual building is older than the theatre.
Oh, really?
This used to be the Times Printing Company.
And what ghost do you get here, then?
The one that has been seen up here is the one of used to be our theatre artist, a gentleman called Roland. This used to be his studio where he did all the posters, the hand-painted posters that went outside. Instead of having all these mass-produced ones up, we used to have individual hand-painted ones. And the gentleman that used to be our stage doorkeeper, at the end of the night, he comes up, checks everything out, makes sure it's all closed down, there's nobody up here. And it's on several occasions, he's actually seen the ghost of our theatre artist.
So did Roland, the theatre artist, die up here?
No. He actually died at home, but he was still working here at the time. I mean, it's only back in 1989.
So he obviously just enjoyed it so much he doesn't want to leave.
He did, he obviously did.
David, you know him personally.
I did.
Do you believe he haunts this space?
I haven't seen him, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Do you know what wouldn't surprise me?
What's that?
Is that you will never leave. Even after you die, you'll still be haunting this place. You will, won't you? You love it so much.
As it happens, I've actually spoke to my wife and told her that once I go, I want my ashes spreading above the ceiling in the auditorium.
And it will be the ghost of David haunting the ground.
If nobody else is here, I will be.
Well, I must say, being back at the Grand has brought back memories for me, because I actually performed here in 1984 in a musical called 7 Brides for 7 Brothers. I don't recall seeing any ghosts, but it certainly brings back the memories of the smell of the grease paint, the roar of the crowd, the mischievous goings-on of performers past and present. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I give you great British ghosts of the Grand Theatre, Blackpool. I thank you all. This is Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Not the obvious place to look for ghosts, especially on the Alice in Wonderland ride. More likely to find a Cheshire Cat and a White Rabbit. So, which ride is haunted? Well, believe it or not, it's the ghost train.
Blackpool Pleasure Beach is an important part of the seaside town's entertainment history. Today, crowds still flock to its attractions, just as they did a century ago. And believe it or not, 2 of its oldest rides are said to be haunted. And local paranormal researcher Jason Carl agreed to tell me about them.
Jason, how haunted is the Pleasure Beach?
Well, there's lots of different stories associated with the Pleasure Beach, primarily with the ghost train ride itself, which amazingly has a real ghost story attached to it, and it's one with some decent evidence attached. It's actually a former worker named Cloggy, and also a poltergeist which moves around the items in the gift shop below the ride, the first ride, in fact, that was built on the Pleasure Beach in 1904, Sir Hiram Maxim's flying machines. There are other stories as well, but those two are the main ones. So this is the world-famous Blackpool Pleasure Beach ghost train.
But is it really haunted? A ghost train that has a real ghost?
Well, of course, you'd think every ghost train wants a real ghost. This one actually claims to have one, but the interesting thing about it is there is anecdotal and historical evidence as to who the ghost is, why they haunt here, and how they were connected here, actually worked here.
This has quite a good history as well, though, doesn't it, the ghost train?
It has an amazing history. If you're interested in circus and fairground heritage, then this ghost train is very important. It originally opened in 1936, and it's actually quite iconic because the term ghost train is used now for these style of rides all over the world. But actually, it started here. When the ride was brought into England for the Pleasure Beach in the 1930s, it was known as the Pretzel Ride, which of course isn't a very scary name. And at the time, the West End play, The Ghost Train, of course very, very famous, was doing really well at the box office. So the people operating the ride here in the park decided, well, hold on a minute, let's use that. Let's call this ride the Ghost Train. And that's what they did.
Am I going to be scared? Do I need to hold your hand? Well, it's quite a spooky ride, but what's the real ghost that haunts us?
Well, you'd expect it to be perhaps something to do with what you can see in the scenes, but it's not. It's actually a guy called Cloggy, and he was called Cloggy because he always wore a pair of clogs to work here on the ghost train. Workers are doing their stuff to make sure everything's working correctly. It's very quiet, very eerie inside. And that's the time when you hear the sound of Cloggy's footsteps moving through the scene.
So did he die near the ride or at the Pleasure Beach?
No, he didn't. He died in the 1970s, having worked here for a long period of time. I don't know how he died, but as so often with ghost stories, spirits return to places that they loved during their lifetime. And perhaps he loved working here so much that he can't quite leave it after his death. Interestingly, the ghost of Cloggy has never actually been seen, as far as I know. There's no records of him ever having been seen. It's always the sounds and the touches and mechanical machinery inside the ghost train acts in strange ways, and they put that down to the ghost. One of the most famous stories of that is that after the electrics have been turned off, the very large skull that sits on top of the ghost train ride building, which has glowing eyes during the day, actually came to life at night. So the light came on in the skull. When they investigated, the electric was all turned off. So how did it come to life?
Is it really haunted?
Well, I suppose you have to ask the people who've experienced the ghost that. From my point of view, if you look at the case, there are lots of recorded things happening over many, many years, many people reporting the same kind of things. In fact, I spoke to one of the ride operators here today, and he says that practically every week people say that as they move through the ride, they feel something touching the hair and the top of their head. Now, you can see, as I can, that there's nothing that actually touches you, so perhaps that's part of the ghost.
And it's not just the ghost train that's said to be haunted. Jason also wanted to show me the oldest ride in the park.
So this is Sir Hiram Maxim's flying machines, the oldest ride in the park, built in 1904. Quite amazing if you think that it's actually been here over 100 years. And down below, underneath the ride, is one of the most amazing ghost stories here at the park. So let's have a look. It's an amazing piece of Victorian engineering. Now, where we are here is actually in the bowels underneath the first ride that was erected on the Pleasure Beach, which was at the time on a beach. And it's called Sir Hiram Maxim's flying machines, and this is how it works.
And is this still what works it?
It is. Now, of course, that's different to modern-day rides that you would see in a theme park most of the time, but it's wonderful to see an ancient piece of engineering still being used today.
so is there a ghost down here?
Well, there is, in this building, actually. Now, part of the building, as you can see through this window, is now used as a gift shop. And the story has it that a poltergeist haunts the gift shop.
Now, why would there be a poltergeist down here? I mean, hopefully nobody died on the ride ever.
Not that I know of. Certainly haven't heard that story. Possibly it's connected to what actually happened on the land itself, because what was here before the ride was actually a Romany gypsy encampment, and of course Romany gypsies, superstitious, fortune tellers, all that kind of thing. Maybe there's a connection there. But the actual poltergeist ghost itself, many people have described who've seen it as a small child, a young girl about 9 years old. It moves things around, as poltergeists tend to do, and there's an interesting story from 1998. Now, at that time, they were introducing a new product range into the shop, and each morning when the people operating the shop came back into the store, this particular product range had moved. They kept putting it back again to where they wanted it to be, and each night they come back again, it'd been moved. So in the end, they gave in to the ghost and left it where she wanted it to be.
Do you think the poltergeist just didn't like the new range?
Well, she wanted it out of the way, I think.
Well, it really is quite amazing that there is a haunted ghost train and ghosts in the gift shop here. Mind you, when you look at the pleasure beach now at the end of the day when all the people have gone home, it does take on a bit of a spooky atmosphere. See you next time. Bye-bye.